Hey, this is Jason Moss of the Georgia Manufacturing Alliance and Manufacturing News Network. We're really excited about an interview we're doing today with Mr. Scott Luton. Scott has been a great friend of mine and great friend of GMA for many, many years. I've always been really impressed with his leadership abilities and skills to be able to gather people together and get them in action. You know, have them do some pretty great things in the supply chain world. Now, I've watched Scott his business develop and grow and kind of morph through the years. It's pretty interesting. We're all kind of going through that, but Scott has got his finger on the pulse of the supply chain like nobody else. I mean, this guy knows what's going on, and he's really connected to the top leaders. As you know, GMA, we're really focused on Georgia, just kind of really digging in with the manufacturers in the state of Georgia. But Scott's got a lot broader footprint. I mean, he's all over the country, and he's also, all over the world. It's pretty cool to see how his business has grown. So, but I wanted to bring Scott online, have him take a minute or two, introduce, his company, what he does and why he does it, kind of the impact that it's having. We're going to talk a little bit about how both of our businesses have changed and how we're serving our industries differently. So with that, Scott, I'm going to turn it over to you and tell us a little bit about Supply Chain Now.
Sure, absolutely. Jason, I appreciate those kind words and more importantly, I appreciate your friendship and what you do, especially during these tough times, right? It's all about leadership right now. It always is, but especially when we're going through unique, challenging times like we are now. So Supply Chain Now, we've been around several years. Our mission is very simple. It's to spotlight the best in all things supply chain globally, as Jason mentioned. We love what's going on here in the States when it comes to supply chain innovation and supply chain technology, and for that matter, just supply chain know-how and leadership.
Yeah.
But there are so many stories globally in this global business environment that we just can't get to fast enough. We at the core of what we do is our podcast, which we publish right now. We're publishing every day, right?
That's cool.
But we know the important thing there from what we're seeing and hearing and getting feedback from all parties is that there is a huge appetite for good information, whether it's related to COVID-19 and how organizations are fighting that battle and protecting their team and protecting their operations, or as a departure from dwelling on that challenge that we all face. There's still a hungry appetite for more generic and general supply chain know-how, and some of those stories that we have been really fortunate to pull out of our guests. They're really inspiring, and we aim to share that across our podcasts, our live streams, webinars, and of course social media. So in a small nutshell, that's about us. And for folks that want to learn more, they can go to supplychainnowradio.com.
Okay. Very cool. Very cool. Now you do a lot of, the format that your business is built around is being able to really dig in with industry leaders and learn best practices. And, I'm thrilled that I'm able to partner with you. I will be I'll be transparent in this conversation. Scott has, he's a visionary and he's seen kind of where business is going and the information age that we live in today. And he told me he was going, he's doing this webinar thing, and he was going to interview people, and he was going to do it, virtually and have podcasts set up. Dude, I didn't know what a podcast was. I'm a fairly technical sort of guy, but not a lot. And I'm like, well, you have to show me how to get to a podcast and what to do with it when I got it. But he was, he really excited about it. And I'm like, dude, I trust you. Whatever that looks like, I want to support and back you up in what you're doing. And so I learned a little bit about it, but he drugged me kicking and screaming into this space. And he was like, man, he said, this digital way, this is the way. And I'm a live face-to-face guy. In 12 years, we had never done a webinar until 3 weeks ago. Right. I mean, and fortunately I was taking notes as I was watching how Scott has built his business up. But we were, just as a foundation, last year we did about 120 events and had about 3,500 people from all around the state come plug into the events that we hosted. So 120 events is a lot. And we have always done face-to-face business, helping manufacturing professionals connect with other manufacturing professionals to learn best practices. I mean, we've taken some amazing tours from Coca-Cola to Caterpillar to Bluebird Bus to, Kings Hawaii and a variety of different companies like that. And I love the face-to-face interaction because there's only so much you can get from a call or an
Right.
audio or that, or a text or a phone call or whatever. So I love the face-to-face interaction. Now our mission hadn't changed at all. Our mission has started off and continues to be support Georgia's manufacturing community. And our tools have changed. And going from, we went 100 miles an hour as an association, putting all these events on. 3 weeks ago, went from 100 miles an hour to dead stop. Every event we had on the books canceled or postponed to some date in the future. We still don't know what is. And we had to switch. It was like we had to flip the switch. Fortunately, we had a little bit of a jump start. I started, really, taking a look at the coronavirus and how it was impacting China back in January. And I came to my team and I said, hey guys, in the event they shut Lawrenceville down, how would we operate our business? Because we're alive, we're an association, but we're an events business more than anything. Right.
Right.
And so what could we do? And we started talking about, man, we could do these interviews and start interviewing top executives. So I followed your lead, and I made pulled in a favor or two and made a few phone calls and invited a couple several executives on the line with us to get their insights on what they were doing in preparation for this. And so we had a little bit of a foundation. I learned all about this Zoom thing. We still a little rough on the edges on that, but I think all of us are. But it's been really fun to see that transition. You've got such a lead on that. You guys you're over 300 podcasts, I think.
Yeah, we're I think we published 332 today. So there's 850,000 podcasts in the world right now, and that's a beautiful thing. How easy it is to be able to share your perspective and your thoughts and your insights, or in our case, oftentimes sharing others. Mm-hmm. That's a beautiful democratic element to podcasting in a digital space. But yeah, it's a ton of work. It is a ton of work, especially with our business. Just like you've had some ebbs and flows and things you learn, and then you apply that. And of course, you got market conditions and everything else. We have really evolved to where we use a variety of vehicles to share thought leadership and to share our guest stories and to share innovative supply chain technologies. Podcasting happens to be at our core, but we've really, webinars, which, it sounds so cliche, but gosh, if you take the right approach with a webinar, you can engage that audience and make it really interactive, and really folks can learn very actionable and practical insights from these vehicles that have become cliche and in some cases stale. But again, for us, podcasts, webinars, live streams with social media to reinforce and to share and distribute, that's how we serve and connect with our audience. And it's been quite a journey.
Yeah. And I love the reach. We, Scott and I, after we kind of figured out how the pieces were working, we put together Today in Manufacturing. So that's a series that GMA works in conjunction with Scott. He puts all the bits and pieces together, and we got some great.
HLB Gross Collins.
Gross Collins is a great sponsor of
Love
that.
our sponsor.
And so bringing those folks into the studio to sit down, the industry leaders to sit down and kind of go through that podcast and really get to know those leaders is very. Once you've experienced it, you really understand, but it's being able to plug into this series and invite some of our top leaders in the manufacturing space in has been very valuable. And everybody, as they roll out and we share those messages, I'm amazed by the feedback that we get from the manufacturing space. We get really great input about the information that's shared, because you don't often have a time to sit down with top executives and pick their brain about sort of, where they came from and hear about them personally and what the things are that help them in their decision making, from early on, how they get involved in the business. That's really, really neat to be able to dig in to spend 30, 45 minutes, maybe an hour, chatting with these folks. You really get to build a friendship differently than you do when we show up, I mean, we come rolling in with a, box full of headsets and some name badges. We shake their hand, grab a cup of coffee, talk for 3 minutes, then we go walk around on the factory floor. You don't build the same kind of relationships or transfer the same amount of knowledge. And even if I have the opportunity to do a pre-tour and I sit down with the leadership and, and dig in with them a little bit, that only goes in my head. Using these tools, especially these digital tools, that is archived forever, and we can direct people back to hear what's going on and to hear those best practices and put those in place. And it's funny, when we first started doing this, I'm pretty particular about how I manage my LinkedIn profile and who I connect with, because a guy taught me early on. He's, his philosophy was, if you don't know them and there's not a way that you can help support them, you probably don't want to connect with them. And right after we kicked these calls off, I started getting, inundated with supply chain folks from all over the world. And I called Scott and I'm like, hey man, I've never accepted any of these in the past because I didn't have a need to. But I'm finding that people are hearing and listening to these podcasts all over the world, which is cool, and it's neat to be able to share that knowledge, not just in the state of Georgia, which is what I'm focused on, but to be able to share it nationally and seeing the pickups on it. It's pretty neat. It's a different game for sure.
Absolutely.
So what are you hearing on the executive leaders in the supply chain space? What are the top 2 or 3 things that you're hearing that they're most concerned with?
Well, that's a great question. And of course, the world changed here, at least here for us in the States, in mid-March, right? And so a lot of things that kept leaders up at night prior to then, for at least for a lot of us here in the States, again, is a lot different than what it is today.
Man, yeah.
But so a variety of things. I think what is really important right now, in light of the COVID-19 environment we're in and the challenge we're fighting, is we've got to protect the end-to-end supply chain workforce. It is very critical.
Yeah.
Whether it's our truck drivers or whether it is our manufacturing frontline workers that are churning out the products we need, essential products, whether it is, we're all familiar with the e-commerce boom,
right?
Folks can't get as many products as they would like in the stores, or they don't want to go out to the stores. So e-commerce, which was already growing left and right, has grown even more dramatically. In fact, the Wall Street Journal estimated this week that Amazon sales at this point in time could be as much as 40% higher than it usually is, this time of year. And think of that. That is not 40% of 100 items shipped. I mean, that is massive volume. So, and think of all the distribution fulfillment center workers that are critical, that get those products, those essential products, in some cases, out to people. So while we've seen lots of precautions taken across the global industry, right? Still, some companies are not doing what others have been doing to protect these critical workers. Again, end-to-end supply chain. So, move it, make it, ship it, procure it, bring it back, the returns, which we'll save that for a different conversation. But check this out. So data from a recent survey from one of the country's largest specialty staffing providers, a group called EmployBridge. One of their divisions, Pro Logistics, places warehouse workers and fulfillment center workers, thousands coast to coast. They poll their workers regularly to get, because as important as it is to understand what's on the mind of the C-suite, it is probably more important to understand what's on the mind of your workforce, right?
Right.
So in mid-March, one of their latest surveys at Pro Logistics, Brian Devine, one of their leaders, was quoted in the Wall Street Journal saying that 27% of the workers they polled, thousands of workers in these warehousing and distribution center environments, 27% said that their workplace hadn't taken any extra precaution related to the spread of COVID-19. So that's a big challenge, because if folks, and maybe we'll touch on this in a minute, but we have got to keep our healthcare professionals safe. We've got to keep all the other essential aspects of our infrastructure globally safe.
Yep.
Gosh, we got to keep these supply chains moving and these products moving, and that means we've got to take care of these heroic workers that are fighting a good fight every day to make the rest of Americans and other global citizens feel a sense of security, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. The word essential has definitely changed. The definition of essential, I think, in America has changed, now and forevermore. I mean, people look at, especially the supply chain side of the house. There's so
Right.
much buzz and conversation. I've seen you on TV on the morning news and in the newspapers quoted everywhere. And I mean, it's really cool seeing all the press you're getting on that, brother. You're killing it.
Hey, my crystal ball last year, Jason, did not have us spending as much time on toilet paper here in the first quarter and into the second quarter. But that's the challenge that not just business has. That's certainly a challenge that supply chain has. It's we're constantly trying to look around corners, right, and predict demand and better forecast with all this data we have at our fingertips. But despite all of that and all the technology, all the smart people, there's still plenty of curveballs, which keeps supply chain folks busy.
Right. And this one of the things that I love. I mean, I love being a student of the world, just seeing what's going on. And I'm an avid reader. I love to find out what's going on and figure out different bits and pieces. There's some pieces that's got me really frustrated about where we're at now and some of the suggestions that are being tossed around. But one of the things that I really loved, that you did a seminar or invited me to plug into a seminar that you coordinated around supply S&OP. Sales and operations plan. I had no idea. I mean, I kind of sort of knew what that was all about, but the guest that you had, the speaker, used an analogy using pink and red and white M&Ms in a big jar, and this was like in March,
right?
So it was after Valentine's. Right. And for her to really dig in, that was the clearest explanation that I ever guessed. I mean, that I could have around sales and operations planning, because somebody had to order the pink M&Ms and they needed to make sure they had enough pink M&Ms to sit on the shelf, but didn't want to have them going into Easter. Right. So
I want to say that Corinne Bursa with Agility.
Yes.
Yeah. She's brilliant.
She is a rock star. For me to be able to get it, that takes a lot of work. But she really did a good job of explaining how long it takes to plan in the supply chain differently. And I never had an appreciation for all the things that it takes. You just I need it on the shelf.
A lot of this.
I got it, right?
Right, yeah. But so what you're illustrating there is a really important message that not just Americans, but again, everyone is learning, and that is what we're seeing right now in some of the empty shelves, whether it's toilet paper, unfortunately, although that has made strides in a certain part of the country, or food supplies, or you name it. Supply chains work based on a forecast, right? And there's certainly some flexibility, but they work based on that plan. A lot of smart people will gather data, whether it's historic trends or market conditions or other insights from customers and market. A ton of information comes in. They put the plan together, and that's what they're going to produce to. In particular, in the grocery business, if you look at how retailers like some of your biggest grocery stores, they really changed their approach to stockpiling inventory in the last 20 or 25 years, right? So whereas maybe 25, 30 years ago, they would keep a couple of months of inventory on hand at these distribution centers. Well, to drive efficiencies and to, which every business and every operation is after, right, is efficiencies. So that's changed to where a lot of these grocery stores would keep 4 to 6 weeks of inventory on hand. That massive just shift over the last 20, 25 years. So that works fine, clearly, in normal times. How many times have you gone into a grocery store in the last 25 years and not been able to get something? Not often, right? Not too many times. Probably a handful of times, but not very often.
And there are usually 15 different choices of everything.
Right. So, but now with this huge, massive curveball, I mean, think about in our typical times of natural disaster, hurricanes, earthquakes, tornadoes, you name it. a certain portion of the country, and we'll take it like a coast to coast approach here. A certain portion of the country is impacted, right?
Right.
And companies can use the remainder of their supply chain to address that and get stuff where it needs to be. In this case, this is one of those unique set of circumstances where not only is demand off the charts, record territory according to some long tenured food industry executives, but it's widespread. It's global. So it is really thrown. It's been a shock to many Americans' systems to see empty shelves, and that's unsettling.
Right.
However, here's the good news. You ready?
Yep. Bring it.
We all need it.
Yeah.
The good news is if we can flatten the curve,
yep.
and if we cannot give in to panic, and if we can keep the workforce safe,
yes,
you know, the replenishment gains, which we've already seen in many ways, will continue to take root, right? Because these companies, as supply chains, manufacturers, you name it, what we're really good at is identifying that problem and then putting in place a countermeasure.
Right.
You know, you've got food companies obviously ramping up production, focused, to your point, Jason, on core products, right? So that we can get as much out as possible. We're going to probably see some less variety, at least when it comes to food products in the weeks ahead, but we're going to see more products on the shelves, which is really important, right? We're reworking transportation routes. In some cases, for weeks, we've seen manufacturers send trucks straight to stores, right? Bypassing distribution centers, you know, taking that link out of the supply chain so we can get it on the shelves faster. We're seeing products be repurposed. We know right now that hotels and restaurants, unfortunately, they're not doing well, right? And I'm a big fan. We're big fans of Butcher Block in downtown Monroe, Georgia, and we're going to try to eat there as often as we can because they're struggling, right? Many restaurants and a lot of hotels have shut down. So what food manufacturers and other product manufacturers are doing is they're repurposing that product, right, to get it into it may look a little different, but they're using that to get on the shelves, right?
Yep.
So, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. But again, we've got to work together as a society to flatten this curve, protect these workers, not hoard product, which unfortunately we're still seeing. That is going to protect. That's going to help our supply chains continue to heal, for not to be too dramatic.
Right.
But most importantly, replenish and get product back on the shelves and keep it there.
Right. And we got, I mean, and we got the smartest minds, the brightest minds in the world working on this stuff. I mean, it's really neat to see how flexible the supply chain is. I mean, right now, I mean, it didn't snap and break forever,
right,
but it got stretched pretty thin. And now we're starting to see it come back into shape. But like you said, the thing that we've got to do is, as folks in the space is, I know your favorite word is being listed as an influencer, but I mean, and all of us, I mean, if we've got, if we can influence the folks in our house, in our neighborhood, people that we work with, I mean, I'm leaning hard on everybody in GMA to make sure that we as an organization will lead the charge and make sure that we try to flatten this curve and keep people at the house and try to do, I mean, I'm working from my office, because we're actually listed, I talked to our city manager and county commissioner and told them a little bit about what we're doing. And they're like, yeah, we definitely list you as an essential service because we're doing, in the news bucket, because we're doing 2 conference calls on Monday, doing one on the town hall, just anybody that wants to
getting the word out.
Yeah, getting the word out. And then we're doing one on our task force on Monday afternoon. And that task force is anybody that's in the manufacturing space that wants to contribute, that wants to do something, that maybe has supplies or materials or has, space in their warehouse or has capabilities that they can repurpose to help combat and we're seeing some really good pickup on that. And then we're doing 3 other calls Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday at 10 in the morning to just get people together. We've talked about this past week. We talked about the human resources department. What are you doing with your people? And then Wednesday was on legal, and Thursday we did on finance. And we're going to kind of mix those up on Tuesday next week. We're going to do one on safety. Okay, so what do you do as a facility? What do you do if you have one person come in? Do you shut the entire facility down permanently? Do you get clean, or I mean, what's the cleanup process? So we're going to be talking about that on Tuesday. And one of the things that we've been, we just did a call yesterday on finance, and businesses are struggling. Some of them are struggling to keep up with demand,
Right.
and some of them are trying to figure out what to do with their employees as they shutter their buildings. So it's really interesting to see how companies are impacted.
Right.
And so, we did a training on the CARE program, the CARES Act. And so we're trying to help make sure that business owners have the opportunity to see the tools that are out there. And I know you're doing the same thing. I mean, you're getting the message out and beating the drum. Number one, stay your butt at home if you can, right? I mean, stay away from it, and then, if you're essential in the supply chain, you need to go to work, stay safe, right? That's what we got to work with. So what else are you communicating out?
Here's some good news.
Okay.
How about some more good news?
Bring it.
Because we are certainly getting pelted right now with a lot of bad news that hey, we all have to be informed. Mm-hmm. Here's some good news. So Tesla, we're seeing a lot of manufacturers, a lot of companies, figure out how they can aid in this battle. And if you don't believe we're in a battle, talk to any healthcare professional that's on the front line. We've managed to hear from folks across the country. This is absolutely a war that we're in against COVID-19. But manufacturers in particular are figuring out how, from what they do and from what capabilities they have, they're finding out and finding their way into that battle to support the effort. So Tesla will soon, or already is, I'm not sure exactly, making ventilators at its Gigafactory in New York to help our efforts there.
Right.
Ford is working with 3M and GE Healthcare to make healthcare products, right? Yep. Use their lines for different things. Again, innovation and improvisation, right?
Yep.
Global, and Jason, I know you've toured in the past, Anheuser-Busch in Cartersville, Georgia. Yep. This is interesting. Global beverage manufacturer AB InBev, which holds Anheuser-Busch now, they have figured out a way to take surplus alcohol and create disinfectants and hand sanitizer, and they have pledged 1 million bottles of hand sanitizer to get that out via their supply chain and others globally, especially to hospitals and healthcare workers from the front lines. And it's something I'm really proud of. So in our household, Jason, I'm not sure if you can relate, I am a very practical person, and I love finding practical solutions to problems when we can, right?
Right.
And certainly never lip service leadership, right? You and I, that's that is part of the enemy, right? Well, my wife, once so we all are familiar with the health mask shortages, right? A lot of these companies are trying to jump into that fight, which is great. So N95, which is kind of the industry standard, that helps protect our healthcare workers the best. Well, based on some of the hospitals putting their thought leadership out and some of their technical recommendations, healthcare workers are using a cloth cover on top of those N95s to extend the lifespan of these N95s. So while my wife cannot make N95s here, what she can make are these cloth covers that go over them that are washable that can help extend these lifespans. And that's what she's been, over 200 masks that she's made in the last couple of weeks. And she's gotten them out coast to coast. Basically, as requests have come in, she's made them and shipped them out. And it is a beautiful thing. She's doing it out of purpose and mission and action. And that's what Americans do. That's what plenty of global folks do too. But since we're talking here, the U.S., I mean, it's been a beautiful thing. But Jason, because of that, she's heard a ton of feedback from healthcare systems, and it's disheartening.
It's a mess,
but it is inspiring because these folks are our heroes right now. These folks are taking the brunt of this brave fight and doing good stuff.
Yeah, and that's cool.
That's some of the good news that hopefully folks that hear this, your audience
Mm-hmm.
should take some inspiration from it and should take some comfort and maybe ease some tensions. It's we got sucker punched or we got surprised or whatever you want to call it. It's taken us a while to find our footing,
Yeah.
but found it we have, and while we've got some tough weeks ahead,
Mm-hmm.
we're going to beat this enemy, and we're gonna get back to some extent. I mean, society's going to change a bit, I imagine. I think you've heard plenty of perspectives on that, but we're going to break through.
Yep. I agree. And I commend you. And I mean, and that's the Luton household. I have hung around with you guys enough. That's the piece I'm most inspired with is your commitment to give back into the community and working with veterans and all the other things that you do. And, working with industry associations and helping support and lead some of those things. I mean, for years. And, I think the more that we get people committed to, now that they have time on their hands, a little bit of time on their hands, think how they can give back into the community. And that's the reason we set up this task force, so every Monday at 2:00, I've been inundated with manufacturers call and say, hey, what can we do? How can we help? And honestly, I didn't have a resource. I'm like, I don't know, just send me an email and let me put you in a list and see what I can come up with. And had Kim Falconen from Okabashi called. She emailed and she called, and she said, Jason, we really need to do something. I mean, she's, again, not a lip service leader. This gal is feet on the street.
And Okabashi makes footwear, correct?
They make flip-flops, yeah, up in Beaufort. And, now they have, injection molding capabilities. They've got they've got a assembly warehouse space. I mean, they've got all sorts of capabilities, but their orders have fallen off dramatically. Imagine, people are, the Walmarts and Targets are not ordering a bunch of flip-flops right now for the spring season, so she's trying to figure out how she could repurpose. Her husband also runs a machine shop. And so he's got several CNCs and he's got capabilities to build just about anything. And she said, how can we put this together? And I'm like, well, Kim, I'm fighting a lot of honestly, I'm fighting a lot of battles at my shop, trying to make sure that we're doing these conference calls and doing the bits and pieces. Could you help kind of lead the charge? And she stepped up. She said, I'd be glad to. 30 minutes after we talked, she's like, well, we need to be able to gather some data. I'm like, well, I can fix that. About 2 hours later, I had a web page up, manufacturingtaskforce.com. So for any manufacturer that has the capability, has got any, excess mask, gloves, has, warehouse space, has got anything that they could contribute to this war against the coronavirus, are encouraged to do that. So we had the conversation on Wednesday. The website was up and soft launched on Friday. We were making sure we kind of worked out a few of the bugs. On Monday, our town hall call, we announced it. And just so happened there was some people from the governor's office that were on the call. And right after that call, I got a call from the governor's office. They said, hey, listen, we're doing something very similar from the state office, because I was just going to gather the information and pitch it over to the governor's office. I mean, for those of you guys that don't know, we're a for-profit industry association. We don't have one penny of tax dollars in what we do. We're completely supported by members and sponsors, and we don't do any politics. So, I know a couple of folks down there, and Governor Kemp knew him pretty well before he became the governor. But I was just going to gather the data and pitch it over the fence to them, because I'm sure there's people down there that can take care of that. And they said, we're building something very similar. So what we've done is we've built in parallel with what the state has put together. So, the official website is COVID-19, georgia.org/COVID-19 response. So that's the page where you can fill that information out at the state. But we know that the folks there, based on kind of some feedback that we've got, that the folks at the state are really overwhelmed. These folks have never done this either. So we're continuing to keep our webpage up in our database to gather the information and the supplies. I found a company right here in Atlanta area that manufactures respirators. And they were like, we got 40 of them on the shelf, and we got people calling on from all over the world wanting them. I'm like, I ain't gonna put my credit card on there, but you hold those for 30 minutes and I'll have somebody call you. And so, and it was just by throwing it out there saying we want to help, how can we do it? So we've got respirators, we've got hand sanitizers, like, you and the Luton team there doing the mask and stuff. So we're trying to use that as a central gathering point. We're still passing that information along to the state, but every Monday at 2, we're trying to figure out how can we connect the dots and do something actionable to help our folks. One of the other companies, Georgia Expo, they do pipe and drape. So they do expo, if you ever been to a trade show, the curtains that are between the booths and stuff, but they do pipe and drape, and they've repurposed a lot of their production to do, it's still pipe and drape, but what they're doing is using it for the hospital dividers. When they go into like a gymnasium or whatever, they're able to use that, and they're getting calls from all over the world as well, trying to do that. So they're trying to balance all that out, how much to send out of state and how much to keep here. So, but we're committed to do, and it is really inspiring. The AJC did an article, and I gave a little bit of insight on that on the 28th, talking about repurposing and the manufacturers that are stepping up to really change what they do a little bit so that they can, have that impact. And I love that people are, anytime that I can brag on the manufacturers here in Georgia, that's what I'm going to do. And we got a lot to brag about. It's really cool.
Agreed.
So, well, one other thing that we found is, across all business platforms, you got to worry about your workers. You got to worry about your products. Either you're going to stay in the fight for a little while, or you may need to mothball your business for a little while. We got to make sure that we're concerned about finance. But one of the pieces that I mean, this stuff is killing me, because I am a people person. I am out there. I'm a big hugger. If you've been around me, that that's how that operates. But it's the social interaction. It's the community. And there's a lot of folks that are out there solo that, just punch a clock, 9 to 5, don't have a lot of social interaction either way. Some of those, my wife calls them hermits. That's cool. And they're, there's not a lot of change for them, but for some of us that are, kind of on the extroverted side and out there, this is causing, a little bit of a challenge, we're missing some of that stuff. So one of the things we did, we decided we were going to try to play with the, lighten the load a little bit on Friday. So on Fridays, the one call that we do on Fridays is at 4:00. It's called Fun Fridays. Now we're doing all kind of stuff. It's just like, if you choose to, it's a BYOB, if you want to, you can bring a bottle of water if you want to, or whatever, but it's a social gathering virtually. And we'll be able to talk to each other and kind of just wind the week down, and, share the wins for the week. What was the best part? And there are some funny things out there. And sometimes you have to dig pretty deep to find some funny stuff, but there's enough, a sampling that there's always a little something in there. And then one of the other pieces that we did was, now these are absolutely not politically correct in any way, shape, or form, but when we've got a gathering of images that have been ripped off from the internet, Facebook and LinkedIn and a variety of other places that have been contributed. They're not all mine, I promise you, but they've been contributed, and they make, kind of the funny meter. But we've actually got a page up, and each week we're rolling out a new album. So last week we rolled out an album of about 200 images. Guaranteed some of them will make you laugh. Some of them I still don't understand, but that's okay. They sent them and said they were funny. But that's one of the things we're trying to do, is, again, just trying to lighten the load. This is, 18 and above would be encouraged to take a look at these. I mean, nothing bad racy, but it's kind of funny. We gotta at some point have a little chuckle as we go through this thing, or we'll, you can go down a path that, it's kind of hard to get out of. So we're committed to making sure that we communicate with our folks, and we're a voice for them, but also just an ear to listen, So, and I know you and your team are doing exactly the same thing. What are you seeing on the personal interaction, the mental health kind of stuff? I mean, what are some of the folks that you're talking with? What are they doing? What's their?
Well, I think, organizations and teams are finding new ways to stay connected, right? And whether that's work related, or if it's just rapport and camaraderie related, that's really important right now. Doubling down and finding ways, I think, to take care of yourself from a mental standpoint or a physical health standpoint. There's it's healthy as much as I just talked about staying connected. It's also, a lot of folks are disconnecting from the constant mantra of the news or social media or what have you, and taking designated disconnection periods, so to speak. That's to keep a sane mind. I can see how sometimes that might be helpful.
Yeah.
Um,
You can only take your dog for a walk so many times, right? I mean, Maggie is
that's true.
objecting violently right now.
Right. And because there are, unfortunately, there are some tough times ahead, tougher than we're seeing right now. I mean, if you want to look from an industry standpoint, when you've got 42 of the 44 auto assembly plants in the States idled, that has a huge impact across the whole automotive supply chain, tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, you name it. Everybody's impacted during times like that. Aerospace, which is critical. Boeing is the country's largest exporter. And unfortunately, they were dealing with the challenges related to the 737 MAX,
Right.
which had been, the whole fleet had been grounded. That was a huge disruption, not just to their company, but our economy here in the States. And so then you on top of that, you see the challenges with obviously folks aren't flying. We've seen some airlines repurpose those aircraft to ramp up air cargo, which has been in demand. That's been neat to see. But and when it comes to manufacturing, right as the Chinese manufacturing markets were coming back after about a 2-month standstill, right? Then the impact started to take shape here. And I'll tell you, unfortunately, despite we do have a good story to tell about manufacturing here in the state of Georgia, a vibrant 10,000 manufacturer strong environment. However, when Chinese factories shut down for 2 months, that is next to impossible for global supply chains not to be impacted. Right. So, from electronics and some other other sectors, we're probably going to see that ripple effect. They're playing catch up in many ways, but they provide so many components that go into different things globally. So, it's important to be honest and frank and transparent and embrace facts and data.
Right.
And, folks in manufacturing supply chain, it's all about the data, right? It's about taking care of people and taking care of customers, but things are data driven. And now, as we continue to hear from folks we serve and folks we talk with and some of the feedback we get from around the world, is folks are hungry for good, accurate information.
Yes.
And that's part of what the role you and I and our organizations, part of what we do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I appreciate that, Scott. I mean, being sure that we bring the right people to the table, the industry experts that we're relying on. Like I said, Laura Matajewski at HLB Gross Collins she's a strong advocate of a lot of the things. She leads the manufacturing division in their organization, and Randy Brunson with Centurion Advisors Group. He has studied this as much or more than anybody I've seen. And Ray Marcel with E2E Resources, and so talking about the payroll side of it, the investment side of it, and then the accounting bookkeeping side. Those are critical components that manufacturers and we have to face. That's yeah. But have somebody that can evaluate that, break it down, and then share it with you in bite-sized chunks that help understand, that kind of legislation and how it impacts your business today. And so I'm thrilled to be able to play a part. Everybody's, it's funny. I'm playing on social media a little bit every now and then and seeing the conversations that are going. Everybody's like, I'm teaching the kids at the house and taking the dog for a walk. And I'm like, dude, I am working harder than I have worked in ages trying to get these pieces together. I'm having fun doing it. I love a challenge. Right. But, it's game time for us, so I'm thankful that we're able to play a part in some way. And, I'm always open to try to figure out what new ways that what tools are we not using that we could, what questions are our folks asking that we're not covering. And that's the reason when we started off doing that 10 o'clock series, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, we were going to fix them in, and we were going to do 2, 1 in the morning and 1 in the afternoon, 3 days a week, and do 6 and have them locked in per subject. But we found that it's pretty fluid. Because people are concerned about different things. So we're changing the topics up every week. And, it's where we're at right now. And I'm trying to, every conversation I have, we try to dig this in is, I believe that we need to, regardless of where you stand politically, we need to make sure that we support and pray for our leaders in the community. Our elected officials that are making some tough decisions, buddy, I promise you, I wouldn't want to be making any of the decisions some of these cats had to make. Right. That's why I do what I do, and I don't do any of that political stuff. But they're making tough decisions, and they're making them based on the information that they got, and they've got information that we don't have. Right. So we got to back them, and we got to support the decisions that are made. We got to, keep them in prayer, because that's tough on them. It's game time for them. They might not have signed up for all of this that they're getting to do now, but we got to do that piece. And then, I think that the next step is we need to make sure this is tough now. It's kind of tough. For some people, it's really tough, and it's about to get a lot tougher. Predictions are, we got, the roughest part is ahead. But the flip side of that is if we focus our energy and our effort and our concentration on what can we do leading out of this, how are we going to retool? What do we need to do, and how can we prepare for a brighter future down the road? Because this too will pass, right? So let's start having that conversation, right? And have that, and that gives us hope for the future, because that's all people ever really want is just fair shot on an even playing field, and hope for the future, man. If we got that down, that's the message I'm carrying anyway.
Yeah, you've got to find ways, as tough as it is, to stay positive. You've got to know that we're going to battle through all of this together. You've got to lean on your network. This is really important, I think, for some of the folks out there that don't take the time to invest in their network. Hoping right now, with maybe in some cases, if you're not running hard, which a lot of folks are, reinvesting in those networks, reconnecting with people, that's really important. But regardless, know that we're going to battle through this. There are tough times ahead. And it's important, as challenging as the last few months in some places around the world have been, and certainly the last few weeks, that our country here has been beaten down a bit. The next couple of weeks are undoubtedly going to be tougher, as some of the rates we already have begun to see spike as they continue to do what they're going to do. And from an economic standpoint, we all know, seeing the job numbers that came out here today, every sector that you can think of has been hit. So, but embrace it. Got to be really honest with ourselves about that, right? Let's not pretend that tomorrow is going to be all candy and unicorns. That's not the case. But we can't also give in to fear, can't give in to panic and anxiety, right? So I've got 4 things that I think it's really important that I'd like to challenge your audience with. Okay. And it's what we're trying to do and act on. So number 1, taking a deep breath. Things that were important a month ago aren't nearly as important today. And, as one of my manufacturing buddies, director of engineering in the metal stamping, once told me, let the small potatoes be small potatoes, right? That's really important. So take a breath. Number 2, please follow the guidelines that your local healthcare authorities are putting out there. Now is not the time to show how immune you are. It's dangerous. They're dangerous times, and really, it's not even about you as much as it is about your neighbors and your loved ones and everyone else in your community. 3, it's kind of, you can take a breath here too. Be empathetic. Mm-hmm. I don't know about you, Jason, but in our household, there's still anxiety, right? And there's a sense of concern, and where do we go from here because of this, this unique time we're all battling through. So I think we all need to be a little bit more empathetic with our neighbors and our loved ones, and especially your kids. Yep. I don't know about you, Jason, but we've got 3 small kids at home, and it is challenging. You want to take all their pain and put it on your shoulders, right? Yep. So I think it's really important to constantly make sure that they are good, and that all the stressors that can impact the adults aren't impacting them. Mm-hmm. It's tough to do as a parent, but I think it's really important now. And you already touched on it, number 4. if you are religious like I am, I believe that the good Lord has a plan, and while he does not protect idiots to some degree, so follow the guidelines, but if you're religious, take a sense that you can get some peace and security, through those quiet times and through the prayer, and just know and believe we're going to get through it. No doubt.
That's fact. That's fact. That's good word, man. Good words. All right. So question for you. I know we work kind of different, some a little bit of different platforms. I'm envious of you doing the LinkedIn Live stuff. We hadn't done much of that yet, but I think that's coming. I got this little box on my desk that says should be able to do one day LinkedIn Live and YouTube Live and do all the live streaming stuff outside of doing these Zoom calls. But how do people so somebody that's not, maybe in my crew, is not super familiar with supply chain, tell us the best way to get a hold to you, know, hear some of the stories and maybe find some additional resources from you.
Absolutely. So the best place is certainly, if not social media, you can find us across the social media universe landscape, supplychainnowradio.com. And if you have a particular question, or if you want to have a particular idea or need, you can also shoot our Chief Marketing Officer an email at amanda@supplychainnowradio.com.
Perfect. Well, I definitely appreciate that, Scott. Well, we're going to be communicating this and making sure all of our team gets to see it. Thank you so much. I know your schedule is slammed, and I appreciate you taking the time to hang out with us a little bit today, and learned a lot. And I know that our listeners are going to be able to benefit from it as well. So I look forward to seeing you at an upcoming event. If you can make it on our 4 o'clock Friday fun 4 o'clock call, come join us at Georgia Manufacturing Alliance and just under the events tab. I'd love to see you there if you can. I think you'll really enjoy it, and we'll share the funny album with you either way. So, all right, guys. With that, we're
Jason,
going off.
Thank you for what you do. I'm very appreciative in a meaningful way of our relationship, and admire you're on a noble mission right now, getting that information out during this challenging time where we're all facing these worries and concerns. So appreciate what you do. Stay safe, you and your family. Godspeed, and we will see you soon.
Sounds good. Go wash your hands. See you.